Y'all, sit down, put the phone on Do Not Disturb, cancel your evening plans, and clear your entire mental schedule, because the situation surrounding Claressa Shields, Papoose, and Remy Ma just cracked wide open in a way that nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, was ready for. Whispers around the internet are suggesting that Papoose has quietly packed up his entire life, walked away from Claressa Shields without so much as a text message, and slid right back into the arms of his wife Remy Ma like the last few months of public spectacle never even happened. And honey, if the receipts floating around the timeline are even half accurate, this isn't a breakup. This is a public execution of a fantasy that Claressa Shields spent months personally financing with her own money, her own image, and her own reputation. Sugar, that's a whole different animal, and it's about to get uglier. Now, take this with a grain of salt, but honey, chatter behind the scenes suggests that Tasha K has stepped into the arena with a claim so devastating that it doesn't just end the storyline. It rewrites the entire plot from page 1. According to those allegations, Claressa Shields was never truly the main character in this romance. She wasn't the woman who won. She wasn't the woman who conquered. She wasn't the woman who replaced anyone. She was, in the words of some folks online, nothing more than a temporary chapter, a placeholder, a distraction, a piece of narrative furniture placed in the room while Remy Ma and Papoose quietly stitched their marriage back together far away from the cameras, far away from the timeline, and far away from the noise. And if that turns out to be true, then everything the internet watched over the past several months was essentially a one-woman theater production with an audience of millions and a leading lady who never even realized the play had already been cast without her. Look, for months on end, Claressa Shields carried herself with the swagger of a woman who believed she had already crossed the finish line. Every interview, every live stream, every Instagram caption, every red carpet appearance, every casual TikTok in the kitchen, Claressa Shields didn't just claim Papoose, she performed the claim. She called him her man. She called him her forever. She called him the love of her life on national platforms. She acted like she had reached into another woman's marriage, pulled the ring off Remy Ma's finger, and slid it onto her own like a trophy earned in some invisible boxing match nobody else was competing in. But come to find out, according to the mountain of allegations now circling social media, that finish line may have been a mirage the entire time, painted onto the pavement by the very woman running toward it. Here's what nobody's saying out loud, and I need y'all to really sit with this. While Claressa Shields was busy filming herself in luxury boutiques, while Claressa Shields was posting captions dripping with victory, while Claressa Shields was allegedly getting a certain man's name inked permanently onto her body, Remy Ma was doing what Remy Ma has always done, staying quiet, staying regal, keeping the wedding ring firmly on her finger, and letting the loudest voice in the room dig her own grave in real time. That's not just marriage strategy. That's not just patience. That's warfare on a level Claressa Shields never saw coming, because it never announced itself. According to Tasha K's reporting, the collapse of this so-called love story didn't come with fireworks. It came with silence. There was no argument. There was no press conference. There was no goodbye. There was no closure text. Sources allege Papoose gathered his belongings, boarded a flight straight back to New York, and reunited with Remy Ma without so much as a courtesy call to Claressa Shields. No closure. No apology. No explanation. Just an empty apartment, an unanswered phone, a growing pile of ignored messages, and a woman left holding a narrative that had already stopped being hers days, maybe weeks, maybe months before she even realized it. And listen, this isn't the kind of ending that can be quietly reframed with a soft launch post or a mysterious caption. Because Claressa Shields didn't just have a private relationship that ended off camera. She built an entire public identity around this man. She dared the world to react to her. She turned every skeptic into an enemy and every doubter into fuel. She fought Remy Ma fans in the comments section like she was defending a championship belt. So when the very foundation of that identity allegedly walks itself back to his wife with a boarding pass and a duffel bag, the fallout isn't just heartbreak. It's public embarrassment on a scale that the internet feasts on for weeks, maybe months, maybe years. Now hear me out, because this is where the story rotates into something even darker. According to further allegations pushed by Tasha K, the luxurious lifestyle Claressa Shields was showcasing, the designer bags, the flashy jewelry, the boutique receipts framed as gifts from Papoose, may not have been gifted at all. The whispers now suggest that Claressa Shields was allegedly buying these items with her own hard-earned money, handing them off to Papoose, and letting him present them back to her as if he were the generous provider she was selling to the audience. Sugar, if that's accurate, this wasn't romance. This was choreography. This was a woman writing, producing, directing, financing, and starring in her own love story while quietly funding the props, the wardrobe, the set design, and the leading man's paycheck. And once that particular allegation began circulating, the entire audience started rewatching every clip like it was evidence in a courtroom trial. The forced smiles. The staged photos. The suspiciously symmetrical captions. The way Claressa Shields would sometimes look at Papoose with an intensity that felt less like affection and more like a performer waiting for applause. The way certain gift unboxing videos looked a little too rehearsed. The way certain surprise moments looked a little too pre-lit. Suddenly, all those moments carried a completely new weight. Suddenly, every viewer became a forensic analyst. Suddenly, everybody remembered that the internet has never lost an argument against a receipt, a timestamp, or a metadata trail. Y'all, I want to slow down for 1 second here, because this is important. Reports even suggest this isn't the first time Papoose has allegedly pulled this exact playbook. Sources online are claiming there's a whole pattern, a history of a certain married man allegedly recycling gifts, taking items paid for by whichever woman was most emotionally invested at the moment, and using them as trophies to prove a loyalty he wasn't actually offering to anybody. If that pattern is accurate, then Claressa Shields wasn't chosen. Claressa Shields was cast. And she may not have even known she was auditioning for a role that had already been filled, in a production that had already been greenlit, with a director who had never left the building. Come to find out, while Claressa Shields was busy declaring victory to anyone who would listen, Remy Ma had already begun the slow, unbothered, almost surgical work of repairing her marriage behind closed doors. There were no diss tracks needed. There were no aggressive interviews. There was no clapback tour. There were no receipts thrown. There were no Instagram lives directed at her rival. Remy Ma didn't need to say a word, because every move Claressa Shields made in public was doing the demolition work for her, for free, in high definition, on every timeline in America. Every over-the-top declaration, every allegedly desperate imitation, every side-by-side comparison of outfits and poses that fans started posting, every single one of those moments made Remy Ma look even more composed, more grounded, more untouchable by contrast. And speaking of imitation, honey, we have got to address this part, because this is where the story stops being spicy and starts being genuinely uncomfortable to watch. Fans across every platform began pointing out that Claressa Shields wasn't just dating Papoose. Claressa Shields was allegedly studying Remy Ma. The outfit started matching. The hairstyles started aligning. The poses and photos started echoing. Even the vacation destinations, the caption structures, the specific angles of certain selfies, the exact filters, the exact color palettes, the exact restaurant choices began looking like a page ripped straight out of Remy Ma's greatest hits archive. What some people initially dismissed as coincidence rapidly transformed into something the internet had a much harsher word for. Obsession. Not admiration. Not inspiration. Obsession. Then came the moment that lit the entire situation on fire and turned the timeline into an inferno. The alleged tattoo. The idea that Claressa Shields may have permanently etched the name of a legally married man onto her body, a man who already carries his wife Remy Ma's name inked into his own skin as a public declaration of a legally recognized marriage, that wasn't received as a romantic gesture. That was received as a red flag with a spotlight on it and a marching band behind it. Because in the harsh math of public opinion, tattoos are permanent, marriages are legal, and Papoose was still legally, officially, undeniably, on paper married to Remy Ma the entire time Claressa Shields was walking into the tattoo shop with confidence. Look, this is the part where the story stops being about a love triangle and starts being about something far more layered, far more revealing, and far more culturally significant. This has evolved into a conversation about image, ego, control, spectacle, and the terrifying speed at which the internet can dismantle a woman who once believed she was untouchable. Claressa Shields didn't just lose a boyfriend. Claressa Shields allegedly lost the entire storyline she built her recent public identity around, on a stage she personally constructed, in front of an audience she personally invited, using a script she personally wrote. Now, I want to be fair, because this channel doesn't traffic in cheap shots or one-sided storytelling. Claressa Shields is a genuine legend inside the boxing world. Claressa Shields is arguably the most decorated female fighter of her generation. Claressa Shields has knocked down every barrier the sport has ever placed in front of her. Claressa Shields has represented her country on the biggest stages in the world and brought home hardware most fighters only dream about. And that's exactly why this chapter of her life feels so jarring, so uncomfortable, so difficult to watch unfold. Because a woman who has spent years demanding respect through discipline, through sacrifice, through pain, chose to hand her narrative over to a man who, according to allegations, was never actually hers to begin with. Here's what nobody's saying out loud. The holidays became the crime scene where the illusion finally collapsed in full public view. Reports began surfacing that while Papoose was allegedly spending the season with Remy Ma, their children, and their extended family in New York, surrounded by real love, real tradition, and a real home, Claressa Shields was allegedly spending Christmas alone, walking into luxury stores, and dropping tens of thousands of dollars on designer goods in what many observers described as a very public emotional breakdown disguised as retail therapy. $30,000 in a Louis Vuitton store on Christmas Day, according to those claims. Alone. No man. No family gathering. No shared holiday. No wrapped presents under a tree. Just a bag, a receipt, a live stream, and the crushing weight of a narrative that had already left the building without her permission. And sugar, this is the part that hits hardest. Because for all the smoke, for all the noise, for all the confidence Claressa Shields displayed across every timeline for months, when the cameras cut and the lights went down, she was reportedly by herself. Meanwhile, Remy Ma was allegedly at home, wedding ring on, husband present, children laughing, family intact, presents being wrapped, dinner being cooked, and completely, utterly, unshakably unbothered. That contrast alone is why the internet has essentially closed the case on this entire storyline. That contrast alone is why hashtags started shifting overnight from Team Claressa to Team Remy. That contrast alone is why the narrative Claressa Shields worked so painfully hard to protect ultimately turned around and became the very evidence used against her. Anyway, sweetheart, let's talk about what makes this Tasha K angle particularly explosive and particularly dangerous for Claressa Shields. Because Tasha K didn't just report gossip. Tasha K allegedly laid out a framework that reframed the entire timeline from beginning to end. According to her claims, the marriage between Papoose and Remy Ma was never actually over. The separation the public assumed had happened was allegedly more of a strategic pause, a private cooling-off period, a marriage counseling window that Papoose apparently decided to fill with public entertainment on the side. And Claressa Shields, in this reading of events, was never the winner of a love war. She was the unpaid extra in someone else's reconciliation storyline. That's a devastating framing. That's the kind of framing that ends careers of narrators, let alone romances. Now here's where things get really messy. Because the internet, being what it is, immediately began digging up every old clip, every old post, every live stream Claressa Shields ever went on to defend the relationship in real time. And watching those clips back through the lens of Tasha K's new allegations. Baby, they hit completely differently now. What once looked like confidence now looks like campaigning. What once looked like love now looks like advocacy for a case that had already been dismissed. What once looked like victory now looks like a woman shouting at a jury that had already gone home. What once looked like ownership now looks like a lease that was already expiring while she was signing her name in the margins. And Papoose. Let's not forget about Papoose in this entire mess. Papoose stayed silent. Papoose didn't confirm the relationship the way she did. Papoose didn't post the receipts. Papoose didn't tattoo her name anywhere on his body. Papoose didn't take her home to meet the family the way she seemed to imply. Papoose just floated in the middle, allegedly enjoying the attention, allegedly enjoying the gifts, allegedly enjoying the storyline, and then allegedly slid right back to his wife the very moment the noise got loud enough to threaten his actual marriage. Whether or not that reading is fair, that is the reading that has now taken over the timeline, and Papoose has done exactly nothing to correct it. Y'all, let me be crystal clear about something before we go any further. The public isn't just watching a breakup here. The public is watching a lesson play out in real time on the biggest stage possible. A lesson about what happens when a woman inserts herself into a marriage and forgets that marriages have gravity. A lesson about the difference between being loud and being chosen. A lesson about how quickly the internet can rewrite you from protagonist to punchline in a single news cycle. A lesson about why silence, when wielded correctly, is louder than any diss track ever recorded. And Claressa Shields, for all her fire, for all her championship belts, for all her defiance, has allegedly been handed a lesson she never expected to receive in front of millions of witnesses. But look, here's where I need to be genuinely honest, because I don't do one-sided storytelling on this channel. Claressa Shields is not the first woman this has happened to, and she certainly won't be the last. Powerful women have been getting caught in the crossfire of half-repaired marriages since forever. Some of what's being reported may be exaggerated. Some of it may be flat-out untrue. Tasha K, love her or hate her, has been wrong before, and she's been right before, and the batting average is complicated. Papoose has said nothing. Remy Ma has said nothing directly. And Claressa Shields herself has swung between defiance and silence in ways that make the picture blurry, incomplete, and open to interpretation from every angle imaginable. However, and this is the however that reframes the entire operation from start to finish, even if only 50% of these Tasha K allegations turn out to be accurate, then the version of events Claressa Shields sold to the public was catastrophically incomplete. Even if only the timeline is accurate, then the confidence she projected was built on a foundation that was already crumbling underneath her while she was building the second story. Even if only the financial allegations are true, then this so-called love story was subsidized by the very woman it was supposed to reward, and that alone reshapes every gift, every trip, every romantic moment into something closer to performance art than partnership. And that, y'all, is the kind of revelation that doesn't fade with the next news cycle. That's the kind of revelation that follows a person around for years, tattooed onto their public reputation whether they like it or not. The final scene of this messy chapter appears to write itself in slow motion. Papoose is reportedly home. Remy Ma is reportedly unbothered. Their marriage is reportedly intact. Their children are reportedly happy. Claressa Shields is reportedly alone with an inbox full of ignored messages and a body carrying ink that may now feel more like a scar than a symbol. The louder one lost the spotlight she was fighting to keep. The quieter one regained the throne she never actually vacated. And the man in the middle? He allegedly walked between both worlds and paid almost no visible price at all, which is arguably the most infuriating part of the entire situation, and probably the part y'all are about to sound off about most aggressively in the comments section down below. But wait, because there's one more piece of this puzzle that nobody's zooming in on, and I want to leave you with it before we wrap. If Tasha K's timeline is even remotely accurate, then Remy Ma didn't just win by staying silent. Remy Ma won by understanding something Claressa Shields never grasped. In the game of public perception, in the game of relationships, in the game of legacy, the person who talks the loudest is almost always the person who is losing the most. Remy Ma didn't need to defend her marriage in real time. She didn't need to trend. She didn't need to clap back. She just needed to outlast the noise, ride the storm, and let the loudest voice in the room exhaust itself. And the noise, in the end, always burns itself out. Every single time. Without exception. There's also a broader cultural lesson buried in this entire saga that y'all need to hear. This isn't just about three people. This is about the difference between building an image and building a life. Claressa Shields, according to allegations, spent months building an image. Remy Ma, according to reports, spent those same months building back a life. And when the image cracked, there was nothing underneath it to catch her. When the life cracked, Remy Ma still had her family, her wedding ring, and her home. That's the real quiet lesson of this entire drama, and it's the one that's going to sting the longest for anyone watching who saw themselves in Claressa Shields at any point along the way. Even the way the public is turning now says something important about how these narratives collapse. Fans who were once defending Claressa Shields in every comment section have gone eerily quiet. The Team Claressa content that once flooded TikTok has slowed to a trickle. The livestream viewer counts have reportedly dropped. The engagement on her posts has reportedly softened. And that, more than anything Tasha K said, is the real receipt. Because audiences don't leave loudly. Audiences leave quietly. And by the time you notice they're gone, the narrative you built your identity around has already been handed to somebody else. So here's the question I want you to answer for me down in the comments section, and I want you to be honest, because this one is going to divide the room right down the middle. Do you believe Claressa Shields was genuinely deceived, genuinely used, and genuinely blindsided by a man who was playing a much longer game than she realized? Or do you believe Claressa Shields knew exactly what she was walking into the entire time and simply gambled that she could pull Papoose fully out of that marriage before Remy Ma could pull him back? There is no neutral answer here. There is no middle ground. Pick a side. Defend it. Bring your receipts. Sugar, drop your verdict in the comments section down below and let's see which team runs this comment section tonight. And if this breakdown gave you a fresh angle on the story you hadn't considered before, do me one small favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications, because there is another chapter of this saga already brewing behind the scenes, and trust me when I tell you, the next twist is one you absolutely do not want to miss. Y'all take care of yourselves, be good to each other in the comments, and I'll see you in the very next one.